Seeing and not seeing is the object mind, is the mind object.
Intro. Hello everyone, welcome to the Shurangama Sutra podcast, shared by the Australia Buddha Bodhi Association. Last time, we explored the idea that the nature of seeing has no expansion or contraction, and that the mind can transform objects. Today, we will continue our journey into Volume 2 of the Shurangama Sutra to explore a very famous Kong public case. Part E, the Anandi's Dilemma. Who is the real me? Many people get lost halfway through their Buddhist practice. They think if the true mind described in Buddhism is the only reality, then what is this physical body of mine, the one made of flesh and blood? The one that cries and laughs? This is the first challenge Ananda poses to the Buddha on our behalf. Ananda asks the Buddha, world-honored one, if this precise seeing, this function that is able to see is my wonderful nature and the true me, then what exactly are my current body and my perceiving mind? Do you catch Ananda's logic? The master points out a key detail here. Ananda uses the word if. This shows he isn't fully convinced yet. He feels I've always used my perceiving mind to distinguish good from bad, beauty from ugliness. I don't use this vague, ethereal spiritual mind you're talking about. Ananda even sounds a bit aggrieved. If the spiritual mind is me and my body isn't, didn't you make things difficult for me before? You once said objects can see me. Wasn't that just confusing me? I don't understand. In truth, Ananda represents all of us. We are used to clinging to a specific point. We feel I must be located somewhere either inside the body or outside. If we can't find a physical location for the seeing nature, we feel as though we've lost ourselves. Part R, pointing to objects vs. Pointing to seeing the mind is not a point. The Buddha sees Ananda's confusion and begins to guide him. He says, Ananda, saying the spiritual mind is right in front of your eyes is inherently wrong. If it were truly in front of you, then point it out to me. Which one is it? The Buddha uses an analogy. He sits with Ananda in the Jada Grove, looking at the trees, the canals, the houses, the Ganges River, and the sun and moon above. The Buddha says, Ananda, point them out to me. The shade is the forest, the light is the sun, the obstruction is the wall, and the openness is the void, even down to a blade of grass. If it has a shape, you can point to it. Now if your spiritual mind is right before you, which one is it? This is the master's key point. Ananda keeps trying to confine the self to a single coordinate. The master explains that Ananda's statement is actually nonsensical because the seeing nature cannot be placed at any single point. No matter where you place it, you're wrong. Why? Because the spiritual mind is not inside, not outside, and not in the middle. It isn't a point or a surface, it is four-dimensional, filling the void and pervading the entire Dharma realm. The Buddha then asks Ananda, if the void is your seeing nature, then since the void has already become the seeing, what is the void? If a certain object is your seeing nature, then what is the object? Analyze this carefully. Can you extract a pure, clear seeing from these thousands of phenomena and point it out to me? Ananda looks around and has to admit, world-honored one, I find that everything I can point to is an object. I cannot find a separate seeing nature within them. The Buddha replies, exactly so. Exactly so. Part 7, no seeing without objects, everything is the seer. Now, don't think Ananda has lost the argument yet. Next, the Buddha asks an even deeper question. Ananda, you just said you couldn't find the spiritual mind outside of physical objects. Now, look again at all these phenomena. Which one does not contain your spiritual mind? Suddenly, something clicks for Ananda. He says, world-honored one, as I observe everything, it seems there isn't a single thing that is not the spiritual mind. Why, if the tree weren't my spiritual mind, I wouldn't be able to see the tree. But if the tree were my spirit, it couldn't be called a tree. If the void weren't my spiritual mind, I wouldn't see the void. If the void were my spirit, it wouldn't be called the void. Therefore, I reflect among all these things. There is nothing that is not the spiritual mind. The Buddha affirms this. Exactly so. Exactly so, this is correct. You might find this strange one moment saying objects are not seeing, and the next saying objects are seeing. Isn't that a contradiction? The master helps us understand the core of this state requires awakening. As the sixth patriarch Huining said, how unexpected. Self-nature can give rise to all phenomena. The mountains, the rivers, the earth, men and women, all of these are appearances of your mind manifested through karma. This is called illusory existence or dream-like existence. Why do we say it as false? Because reality doesn't change, but the false does. These landscapes are constantly being born and dying, they are illusory. Yet they are still manifestations of your mind. Part C, the crowd's panic and Manjushri's compassion. Interestingly, many practitioners at the assembly were completely baffled after hearing this dialogue of objects are seeing. But seeing is not objects. The sutra describes the assembly as feeling terrified and apprehensive. Why? Because the body and mind they had identified with for so long were being negated by the Buddha. Yet the mysterious spirit he spoke of remained out of their reach. That feeling of losing control made them very afraid. The Buddha felt pity for them and quickly comforted the crowd. Good men. The Buddha speaks only the truth. You must awaken to what the spirit is, do not simply follow your senses. At this moment, Manjushri Bodhisattva stepped forward. Out of great compassion, he saw everyone's confusion. He asked the world-honored one. The people still do not understand what is the unconditioned spiritual mind and what are the conditioned objects. Please be compassionate and tell us what is the relationship between these phenomena and the essence of seeing. Why can we not use is or is not to distinguish them? Part 2, the core truth like flowers in the void. The Buddha tells Manjushri, and all of us, all Buddhas and great bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, observing from within samadhi, see that originally there is no subject that sees, no object being seen, and no scattered delusional thoughts. All of this is like flowers in the sky, they have no real substance. How do we understand this? The master uses a very modern example, the screen and the text. Imagine you are looking at text on a screen. The text is the object. It can change, you can type whatever you want. Therefore, you cannot say the text is the screen, the spiritual mind. Why? Because the screen is unmoving and unchanging, while the text is always changing. This is objects change, but the spirit does not. However, can you say the text is not the screen? No, because once the text leaves the screen, it cannot exist. The mountains, the rivers, and all people are the same. Without the spirit, nothing can exist. This is called depending on the spirit, manifesting according to karma. So in this moment, it is the manifestation of the spirit. But you cannot point to it and say, this is definitively the spirit. This is why we cannot simply use it or is not. Part Rho, 1 Manjushri, or 2. To help everyone understand the principle of one and many, the Buddha asks Manjushri an interesting question. He asks Manjushri, take yourself for example. Besides you, is there another Manjushri who is the real Manjushri? Is there a Manjushri? Or is there no Manjushri? Manjushri's answer is full of wisdom, world-honored one. I am the true Manjushri. There is no need to say I am Manjushri or I am not Manjushri. Why, if I say I am Manjushri, it implies there is a non-Manjushri out there, which would mean there are two Manjushris. I am just who I am. In this reality, there is no being or not being. The master explains that the Buddha used this example to tell us truth is only one. It is a definitive one. This is the relationship between our seeing nature and all things. The Buddha says the spirit and all phenomena are originally the changing appearances manifested by the spirit. You have been chasing these changing phenomena, trying to distinguish what this is or what that isn't. Those are all birth and death delusions, not the spirit. You cannot point to the spirit as a separate thing among objects. But if you leave the objects, you won't find the spirit either. This is the wisdom of transcending pointing. Conclusion, returning to the profound true enlightenment. After hearing this koan, what are your thoughts? Anandi's struggle is actually our own attachment. We always try to find the true self within the world of appearances, forgetting that the one who is looking is itself the manifestation of the true self. As the master concluded, the mind can give rise to all things, though the things it creates are illusory and false. They appear because of the spirit. You cannot say they are it, and you cannot say they are not. I hope today's sharing helps you step out of the limitation of that single point. Your true mind is not that 100-pound body, nor is it that restless, perceiving mind. It is the spiritual brilliance that fills the void, pervades the Dharma realm, and is never born and never dies. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. We'll see you next time.